This is ESPL Boxing. Delighted to be joined by Danny. We are looking at the return of Sergio Garcia this weekend, who is coming back against Argentinian Ricardo Cabana. Garcia's lost his last two fights, Danny. Interested to see what you think of this one, where you think he's at in his career generally. Yeah, talk to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Garcia. Obviously had that most probably best known in these shows for the win over Ted Cheeseman. Feels like a long time ago now. And I've said it in a couple of videos recently. There's these, you get a wide, I know he's not a European champion at the minute, but like European level can sort of mean like a broad range of things. And I think he just sort of falls into that category where he fell short against Fundora. Made a decent fist of it. Depending on which judge's scorecards you read. And obviously it was pretty soundly beat by Tony Harrison, but there's no shame in that. You know, they're two world level 154 pounders without a doubt. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I don't know what his promotional situation is. I know all the big fights at 154 are sort of tied up with Showtime and PBC, which could be a factor in the sort of route he wants to take if he does want to try and get to world level or maybe become European champion again and build up more in a slow way that way. But a very good fighter, a very hard fighter to beat. If you're not at a certain level, you won't beat him. So I'm looking forward to him getting back in the ring, albeit against a fairly low caliber opposition, which I think we're about to come on to.
Yeah, definitely. I think Sergio Garcia, record of 33-2, so still a good record. Those losses coming against Sebastian Fundora and Tony Harrison. Sebastian Fundora fight was actually quite close and on a couple of the scorecards there. And it was just with respect, fighting Fundora was quite a big step up from the likes of Ted Cheeseman. Up against Ricardo Cabana here, who hasn't fought outside of Argentina, is 8-1, with the one loss coming against a guy who had a losing record. 3 KOs out of those 8 wins. Yeah, just I'm not expecting you to be an expert on this guy, Danny, but what are you expecting to happen in Spain on Saturday?
It's either going to be Garcia stops him or wins every round. Like, realistically, he's not a puncher, judging off his record. I'm always, some countries, right, you'll see a fighter's never fought out of there, and like you think, right, it's probably not great. And for me, Argentina is one of them. I'm very wary if I see it, because we actually get quite a few. I know this fight won't be in the UK, but you see like quite a few Argentinian fighters with these great records, and you look and they've never fought out Argentina, and they're never really very good. So I'm not expecting much from the opponent, but like, everyone's entitled to a tune-up fight, dust up ring rust. I don't think you can begrudge that. I don't think you can begrudge his management taking a safe option for that, given he is a name at 154. I'm sure there are big fights for them, but it is what it is. This is boxing. We're well used to these sort of fights.
Yeah, I think, look, if he was to lose again, that would be 3 fights in a row, and then that's kind of a lot harder to come back from. Yeah, I think with Garcia, like 35 fights in, and kind of you mentioned there possibly fight going. He never actually lost the European title. He obviously just kind of vacated it to go for kind of world rankings and world honors. So I think that's an option there. I think just going to ask a couple of questions about him possibly fighting UK fighters. He's come to the UK before. I was there that night we fought Ted Cheeseman. I thought he won pretty much every round. He kind of showed a real kind of difference in level there. Kind of, I think one fighter who's fighting soon is James Metcalf, fighting Dennis Hogan on the Taylor Cameron undercard. I think, is that a possibility? Maybe if JJ Metcalf can win against Dennis Hogan, do you see that as a possibility?
It would make sense, but I don't think so. I don't think Eddie Hearn will put Metcalf in with Garcia if he gets the better of Hogan. They'll be looking for bigger fights for him than that, and that's a really tough fight for Metcalf. I think you could say the same about any sort of 154 pounder in the UK. I think a promoter would have to be very, very confident in them to put them in with Sergio Garcia, and I don't think he would put Kevin Ajarko in with him. I sort of struggle to think of other domestic 154 pounders, but I think, again, I don't know too much about Garcia's promotional situation, but I think a really good fight that if the zone could get it on would be Garcia versus Lejarraga in Spain. Like, Lejarraga, even though he had that loss to Metcalf and he's not this sort of boogeyman that he was when he was like knocking everyone out and destroyed Bradley Skeet. He sells very well in Bilbao, and I'm not sure if Garcia sells quite as well, but if they could get that fight, I think the European title is a bit occupied at the minute. But even without it, that would be a really big fight. And those DAZN Spain cards, it feels like we haven't had one for ages, but I quite enjoy them personally. I think you get a lot of good fights that you wouldn't normally watch on them. So I would like that maybe as like a second fight before potentially jumping in again at world level for Garcia.
Yeah, you would think so. Like you would, I wish fights were easier to make in boxing, but it's just kind of not how the sport works. We've learned that over the last few months. But yeah, I'd agree with you. I think Lejarraga, we know all about him as British fight fans. So yeah, you would think that would be a good fight. You would think that would be a closely matched fight. But yeah, we'll have to see. But I'm not against that fight happening at all. Garcia still 30 years old, so you'd like to think he still has a lot to offer. But yeah, I was impressed when he fought Ted Cheeseman. Really impressed, and I thought when he faced Fundora, I actually kind of fancied him to possibly win that fight, if I'm honest with you, and it was fairly close on the scorecards. Yeah, we'll leave it there, Danny. Just yeah, we're not going to pretend to be experts on the guys that Garcia is fighting on the weekend. Pretty confident he's going to come back with a win, and then we'll see what's next. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just maybe like a last thing. I would love to claim this as an original thought, but I think I was watching a video with Barry Jones, and I think it was him mentioned the possibility of Madrimov, who's obviously just fought on the card at the weekend, the Bam Rodriguez undercard, and he's going to find himself in a tricky position because PBC with all their 154 pounders, Charlo with all the belts, obviously Mendoza now PBC as well. They're not going to fight him like if he's with his own in Matchroom. So that's another potential fight for Garcia and would be a really good fight for Madrimov. But I don't know how much Garcia would want to be used as opponent again, certainly straight after coming back.
Yeah, I think for me, Madrimov has had 10 fights now. One of them was kind of a draw, which ended early. I think he's probably the best fighter in the world who's had 10 fights or less. I can't think of a different one, to be honest. I think to be kind of world level after 7-8 fights really. Yeah, but I think on the other hand, Madrimov, I'm not sure anyone's going to want to fight him. So I think he's in a bit of a sticky situation until he's kind of gets himself in some sort of mandatory position. But again, that's boxing for you. Yeah, we'll see. Look, hopefully the possibilities are endless, and we'll be talking about another Sergio Garcia fight soon. But yeah, we'll leave it there, Danny. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll speak to you again soon.
No problem, mate. Thanks.